You are about to enter Noir Alley. Abandon hope, all ye who enter here, at least for 90 minutes. I'm your host, Eddie Muller, tour guide through the sketchy realm of sinister cinema. Today I've got a film from the tail end of the noir movement, The Burglar, released by Columbia Pictures in 1957. It's part of what I call the second wave of American noir, made by a new generation of filmmakers outside the Hollywood system. These films, like Stanley Kubrick's The Killing, Irving Lerner's Murder by Contract, and Alan Barron's Blast of Silence, were inspired by Hollywood noir, but shot cinema verite style, on budgets that would barely cover a studio film's catering costs. Since The Burglar was released a year after The Killing, and because it displayed similarly flashy technique, some critics thought its director, Paul Wenkos, was imitating Kubrick. That's a faulty assessment, since The Burglar was actually made first, completed in 1955, but not released until 1957. The film was shot in Atlantic City and Philadelphia, Wenkos' hometown, on a minuscule budget of $90,000. And that it got a theatrical release at all was due entirely to its star, not Dan Duryea, Jane Mansfield. She'd had only a few bit parts before this, but she was about to make a splash on Broadway and Will Success Spoil Rock Hunter, and in the pages of Playboy magazine, where she was not shy about revealing her ample assets. The producer of The Burglar, Louis Kellman, owned a film processing outfit in Philadelphia, and he sold The Burglar to Columbia after Mansfield had busted out in a Frank Tashlin comedy, The Girl Can't Help It. Here, however, despite the platinum hair and voluptuous figure, Mansfield is far from the cartoon sex bomb that was about to become a cultural icon, although the film's advertising fully exploited her larger-than-life sex appeal. The person who connects this film to 1940s noir, other than Dan Duryea, is its author, David Goodis. Back in 1947, his novel Dark Passage was turned into an inventive vehicle for Bogart and Bacall, and Goodis seemed set in a lucrative career writing for the movies. But he turned his back on Hollywood in 1950, moving back to the family home in Philadelphia to care for his schizophrenic brother, Herbert. And that's where, during the 1950s, he pounded out a series of paperback originals: Cassidy's Girl, Down There, Moon in the Gutter, Black Friday, novels that only made a few $1,000 each, but eventually earned Goodis a reputation, especially in France, as a master of existential noir. The Burglar was published in 1953, and since it was set in their own backyard, Wenkos and Kellman bought the rights. Kellman was hoping a successful feature might make Philadelphia a magnet for East Coast filmmakers, with his film processing plant as the hub. Wenkos was surprised to find the book's author living modestly in the same city, and he convinced Goodis to write the screenplay, the only time in his career Goodis wrote the shooting script for one of his own novels. The story concerns professional thieves lying low after a daring heist. Complicating matters is that years earlier, the gang's leader, that's Duryea, made a deathbed vow to his mentor that he'd always protect the guy's young daughter. Well, that little girl has matured into Jane Mansfield, so complications ensue. The film couldn't possibly depict the provocative sexuality that was Goodis' stock in trade, but it manages in its own low-rent way to capture the desolation and despair of the writer's best work. And Duryea, who'd been a snappily dressed menace in noirs like Scarlet Street, The Woman in the Window, and Crisscross, among many others, gives a different performance here, as an aging crook struggling to keep his gang together while resisting the temptation presented by his nubile niece. Joining Duryea is another familiar face from classic noir, Martha Vickers, who 11 years earlier made a big impression as sexy Carmen Sternwood in The Big Sleep. The cast is rounded out by Peter Cabell and Mickey Shaughnessy as members of Duryea's gang, and Stuart Bradley as a dirty and duplicitous cop. Old-school football fans will appreciate hearing John Facenda, the voice of NFL films, as the newsreel narrator. He, too, was a fixture on the Philadelphia scene of the mid-1950s. Here is Dan Duryea, Martha Vickers, and about-to-be superstar Jane Mansfield in The Burglar.